Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What Do You Say Anime. I'm your host, Peter. On today's episode, we got a special one for you. The boys just got back from watching the new Sword Art Online progressive movie, Chorizo of the Deep Night. Joining me today, we have Pat and Haz. Gentlemen, how are we doing on this fine evening?
Oh man, chorizo is one of my favorite snacks.
Yum.
So, doing great tonight. um, that was a great movie. I'm an SAO stan, as you guys can see behind me. I've got Kirito and Asta behind me, but uh, I love that movie. It was a great time, and it seems like it's setting up for more. So can't complain. You know, more SAO is better for most of us, at least in this call. What about you, Has?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's very cold out for those of y'all that don't know. Almost lost my fingers holding the popcorn bucket on my way back home. And but it was a fun and I'm glad I got to see it in theaters. I'm super excited for the future that seems to be very long.
Yeah.
Also, me and Pete don't like each other right
No,
now.
we do like each other. We had an off segment argument prior to recording that got resolved because we both realized we agreed with each other. It was just portrayed poorly. So hopefully
Yeah,
in the podcast we could portray it a little bit better. Pat, quick question for you though. Would you like this movie more if it was called Chorizo of the Deep Fried Night, or do you like the Chorizo of the Deep Night?
Oof, I don't know. I've never had chorizo deep fried. I've only ever had it like as part of like a salsa or to top a queso, that you dip in. So and obviously as chorizo itself,
Yeah.
as little sausages. So um God, I don't know. Nothing is worse deep fried though, right? Like
Yeah,
although
you
the internet has a bad record, right? With deep fried, isn't that usually
like a deep
a
fried beef or something?
yeah, like
Yeah,
isn't that worse usually? So hmm,
perhaps. Yeah.
this is a really good bit,
I
Pete.
love
I
it.
mean,
I love it.
this is gonna get a lot of new
I,
listeners,
I
I
hope
think.
somebody else out there also is like chorizo. You mean chorizo? And we're not the only ones who has meat on the brain. But before we jump into the thick of things, obviously this is a review spoiler for the entire movie. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you should probably watch it before you listen to the rest of this episode because we're going to be talking about this and more likely bringing up stuff from the first movie as well. So spoiler alert for everyone out there, but I want to get that out of the way. So gentlemen, we are two sides, whatever that metaphor is, of SAO fans. You guys really enjoy it. I'm somewhere in the middle to lesser ground. So that being said, I will say I have some qualms with this movie. But should we start out with the good or the bad?
I think the good makes more sense. Well, just first off, like, how was your guys' theater experience? Because we always usually talk about that at least when we review other movies, which you should go listen to those episodes, by the way, including the one for the first SAO movie.
True.
Uh, I had a really good theater experience outside of the fact that for whatever reason the projector screen was probably 2 feet angled down too far to where the subtitles were getting like anywhere from like 50 to 80% cut off on the bottom. So it made reading I could still read it, but it was difficult. It was frustrating. Like I had to focus hard to read the subtitles. And I don't know, but other than that, the theater experience was nice. It was, yeah, like Has said, it's freezing cold in the Northeast right now. So I think the theater was pretty empty because of that. I think a lot of people rescheduled their tickets, but uh, overall, really good movie. I'm glad I saw it in theaters too, like Has said, because like I don't know, just the ambiance, the sound is a lot better than just watching on a screen or on a phone.
Yeah, I too had a pretty good theater experience. It was a little weird, because I mean I went in expecting it to be full because on the app it was full, but like Pat said, and it seems people left or rescheduled because of the weather, which makes sense. There were some people there that got very early and had a conversation with about JJK and some other anime too, which is nice. Um, but a lot of the reaction stuff that I'm used to having in movie theaters, like with Dragon Ball and stuff, wasn't super there outside of a few moments that we'll talk about. It was a good theater experience, and my seat was heated. I was blessed.
Oh yeah, and for context, Has is from New York City, which means his theater experience is a little different than anyone else's in America. And so I think it's you probably had a really good time with it.
Yeah.
I paid $18 for my ticket, so I just assumed that I was getting into like the good reclining seats, and then when I got there, it was just like the normal one, so I was a little salty about that. However, I also had a similar experience. Pretty dead. I could really stretch out my arms. That was a lot of fun. I counted in the theater there was one girl there compared
Yeah.
to about the 40 other dudes there. So props to that guy bringing his girlfriend to the SAO movie. I wish that was me for real, for real. But yeah, it was a normal movie experience for me. I wish I had the reclining seats for an $18 charge, but it is what it is.
Paying to see SAO, Pete. I mean, come on. That's worth 30 or 40. I also had to Uber because my car is in the shop, so that was weird. Like I had to Uber into a theater. I just haven't done that until ever. So it was very, very weird. But yeah. All right. I don't know. I guess the first impressions of the movie then. Like I don't know. I think and like generally positive stuff. I would say the
Mhm.
uh you could see the budget was in the movie. I think it started off a bit weaker than like the first movie was a little bit prettier throughout the entire movie, but I also think that this movie's second half is where most of the animation budget was spent. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but the first half to me felt like it still felt above like your standard seasonal anime and still felt like movie quality animation, but there are just a couple times where I was just like, oh, that doesn't look particularly great, like this scene doesn't look like beautiful
Yeah.
like the rest of the movie did. Has what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. My first impressions of it were like, you know, yeah, I was slightly concerned. Also, not just from the quality of it, but uh, the if you look up SAO Progressive Movie 1 versus Movie 2, there's a very clear difference in marketing. And obviously, part 1 is the beginning of this new, you know, uh, telling of a story. But like part 2 seems they kind of put the foot a little off the gas or saved a bit. But the second half, like um, Pat said, I think looked a lot better than the first half. They started doing a lot of extra stuff. Like one of the last scenes, they really balled out on them walking down a hallway for some reason. When towards the beginning, it was more of the typical SAO like ordinal scale animation. So
Yeah, if we're gonna keep it on the positive note, I will say that there were some technical elements that I enjoyed way more this time around compared to the first movie. More, I'm hitting more towards like the sound design. I thought that was really well done,
oh
especially the last scene where they're like in the city, I guess, and it's like pitch black and the steps. And I
yes,
thought like the steps were off, and
yes,
then it's like, well, there's a reason why the steps were off because there was somebody behind them. I'm like, oh,
yo,
that was really
yo,
well done because I was getting like high rise invasion, Vietnam flashbacks where that's like the worst sound design show I've ever seen in my entire life. But visually, I thought it was okay. I think like you guys said, I think there was parts where it shined better than it did before. But from a movie perspective, I expected a little more. I'm not gonna be mean, but it wasn't bad. I'll say it's not bad.
Yeah,
I want
I
to.
think that's fair.
Okay. I just want to really quickly bounce off to the sound design because I was talking about the animation. Funnily enough, Pete, that exact scene was when I realized like how amazing the sound design
It
was.
was
Like
really good. Yeah.
not just the sound design, but like the audio mixing on the dialogue. Like it really felt like they were talking in like this hollow room, and I was just like, I was just so shocked in that moment. Like the entire scene like really displays the power of it. But
The
you were
cave
going,
was really well done too, with like the droplets
yes.
of water and the little creepy like guy skidding around, and like you can
Yeah.
hear him coming from like the distance and getting closer. I thought that was like really well done. Like major props to whoever's like the sound engineer for this movie because honestly just fantastic. Like zero qualms with that aspect.
The fight scene music too, just to stick with sound, I
Hmm.
guess. They did a great job. Like it was a new-ish song that still had the coffee soda bit, included in as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, the boss music fight, I guess, like the main OST song was really good, and then I thought the ending
Mhm.
song for the credits, I mean, that's a banger. Air Aoi, however you say her name, that song went right on my Spotify playlist. Like no doubt, like that's playing next time I'm at the gym. It was just banger, it sounded like your usual SAO banger too, which was nice. Like it felt like it still had the.
It,
It wasn't just a song that was put there. It was like
mhm.
it was a choice. It was an active choice to make that the ending song.
It
Um,
definitely kept that SAO sound, that's consistent with, like, crossing fields. Like, I feel like there's a very iconic sort of sound that SAO has
I agree.
to its
mm,
music.
Especially in the like Pat mentioned, the fights, um, where there's not really like it's way more just like instrumental compared to like adding a voice inside the battles. I thought that was just like high BPM, this is a fight, let's get hype type of music, and I think they
Mhm.
definitely portrayed that, especially in the last major boss battle. I'll say, really, really well done.
yeah. I'm curious. I think we all saw subtitled tonight.
Yes,
I know.
Mhm.
I'm actually going to see it with friends on Tuesday, dubbed. So that'll be fun too to see how different it is. I remember was it at it was at Anime Expo. We saw uh, Bryce Papenbrook and whatever her Kirito or Asana's voice actress is, doing some lines and talking about recording this movie. It was either there or it was at Anime NYC. I can't remember which one it was, but it's gonna be fun. I'm like, oh, now I actually get to see them perform because I never watched the dub growing up. Like I always just watched the sub just because it's what I was native to. But my buddies have all just watched it dub, so it's gonna be a cool experience to see. Like, oh, are the lines mainly the same? Like what are they saying? What's how do they localize it slightly differently if they do at all?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know because I don't know. I like the dialogue in this movie too. Just to I don't know keep if we're gonna keep talking about that
yeah,
like it was I don't know. I think what's her name, Argo,
loved her.
really really good addition to. Well, and of course she was in the first movie, and she's also in the original Sao, just more as like a an unmentioned like I don't know person messing with the
She
yeah
is just one of the many people that Kirito interacts with off screen. You see her very
right
briefly during the Christmas episode. She's the one who gives him the information regarding the, special item for those who have watched the original series.
right. But like so her addition or her becoming I don't know she's listed as supporting, but I don't know I'd say she's pretty close to a main
She
character
seemed
in
like a
this
main
movie.
character. This one for sure.
In this movie specifically, right? Like, she was awesome. Really funny. Uh, you can tell that there's layers to uh, her character. She's not just an information broker.
She's an onion.
You know, sh- right.
Yes, we got the Shrek reference. In. Let's go.
Yes, let's go. All right, it only took us like what 20 minutes. That's
Yep.
pretty good. No, but she's she puts up that oh I need to get paid. I'm not a softie. Come on, I got to do my job. But then literally like four times in the movie, she gives away information
Yeah,
for
for
free
free.
To Kirito and Asuna because she's like, oh well, you guys bought me dinner, well, or oh you guys bought me or brought me to the bath. You did whatever for me. Like no, you did. You don't have to give us this for free. You're just doing it because you are a good person, right? Like you can
Mhm.
see that there's the she puts up the front, but there's an actual character there, and I think it'll be really fun to see how this goes further because I know again, I think Haz and I have both read a little bit of the manga for Progressive. I know I've read the first three volumes, and I don't remember any of this being covered. This is all new material to me.
Oh,
So
this
Getting
is
deja vu from our first review.
I know the manga is not the same as the light novels. I know it's different, but
Guys,
um,
we're sorry we didn't read the light novels. We know it's a LN adaptation,
we
but
know.
the manga still exists, and it's also labeled progressive. Forgive us.
Yeah, we're sorry. At least there's no weird bath scenes. It's funny.
Uh,
There's a bath scene, but there's no weird bath scenes to have to talk about. In this
it
movie.
is it is oddly the moments of fan service that do exist are very oddly placed and feel like someone
I
had
want to
a
talk about
uh
this. Yeah.
yeah, someone if you watch the movie, SAO Progressive does a lot of redesign for characters. Characters are covered art up, they're not sexualized as much as in SAO, if at all. Um, and there are moments in here where there are shots that are just oddly placed like ass shots. Specifically, the one that's held the longest is the last one where Asuna and Mito are hugging, and it's just bottom to the top, right? But it's just the character designs aren't sexual. Like it's just a weird camera position, and it feels like someone at the top was like, "If you don't have fan service, we're not dropping it."
It reminded me of, you know how when we watched like Rosario Vampire, it felt like whoever was like filming the anime, if you can like put
Yeah.
that in perspective, was like crouching down and looking up. They did that so much in this. I'm like, man, like they're not showing Asuna's ass, but they're really focused on that ass. Like
That's the
it was a
weirdest part.
lot.
Cause like, I don't know, Has and I talked about this a little bit before you got back. Is your central time.
Gang gang.
Yeah, there you go. We were like, there's the scene where they're crawling and exploring, right? And they show her ass, but like to me, I interpreted that because literally the next like screen that they show is Kirito like blushing and like looking away or whatever, being like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, I shouldn't look." Like that's all right. That's normal. That's still fan service, but not like
It's
unnecessary, I guess
playful.
it's
Yeah.
playful, and it's also not they didn't show anything. It's not like they showed panties or anything either, right? Like, I hate that we fucking talk
But
about this, but, it's true, it's important, it's part of
yeah.
anime culture, right? Like, so, like, they didn't actually show anything. It's
Mhm.
literally just, "Oh, his ass is her ass in his face." It is what it is. Then in the bath scene, there is almost no sexualization of them at all when they're butt ass naked in the bath. Like it's not like the water see through. Their tits aren't floating or anything like that, like in the fucking manga for whatever reason. Like there's and don't ask me again. The first episode, just go listen to that. That's where we talk about that. But like, there's sexualization, and then oh yeah, put on the bathing suit, and then I mean there were random parts where the camera was zooming around in the fight where you got like 2 frames of ass, but, like, even that wasn't bad because of the swimsuits they were wearing were all, like, very tastefully designed and not like, like, not meant for fan service, which is why it felt so weird that they still had those moments of fans like,
Yeah.
overt fan service. Like, it's like you didn't need to do it, but you also didn't commit to the bit either to, like, really get people in, so I don't know. Like, yeah, it's not a complaint either. Like, that's such a nitpick.
No, it's just like if it happened once, it's like whatever. If it happens like 5 times, it's like, But I feel like it happened like 12 times where it's like enough where all three of us notice that, like, damn, there's a lot of like interesting camera shots. But bringing back to the cave though, where like Asuna's in front and Kirito is in back.
Yeah.
When they get out of that area, you see that there's enough space where they're on the left and right of each other. So it's like the whole time I feel like Kirito could have just been not behind Asuna's ass, but I mean that could just been like whatever the shot. But I thought that was funny. It's like they're coming out at the exact same time. There's enough space for them to walk. Like that was an interesting shot. Okay, I see you. Like, but I get it. It's like it's like putting it in your mind that like eventually it's like if this is your first time exploring SAO, like the idea of Kirito is looking at Asuna like that. It's like I get it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
They're crushing on
Also,
each other.
Yeah.
You never would have known, if you hadn't watched SAO before
Mm.
until now. Yeah, wink, wink.
but
Sorry, go
even
ahead,
that
Ed.
shot, but even that shot too, right? It's so weird because when they're walking down the staircase, it starts at their legs and goes up. And like the camera angle is sexual. There's nothing inherently sexual about these people's
Yeah.
legs. But like it stays there and it's just like what it almost, I don't know whose decision it was, but it doesn't feel like it was any creative's decision, like some higher ups really being like, this isn't gonna sell regardless
I,
if you don't have it.
I will give it some defense though, because of like if this is like an MMORPG, like female characters are like that, and like their design models are kind of like that. So to me, it's like not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just funny that it happened like enough where all three of us noticed, type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I only noticed it like 3 or 4 times, but the 3 or 4 times I was like, "Why?" Like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? I didn't even, notice it that like and they were like, "Yeah, God," it was just like, "Why?" Yeah, just why, Like,
Just
and I know why. We know why, right? Because it's anime.
yeah.
Mhm.
But like whatever.
Yeah.
Again, a very like that's not even really a complaint. That's like a just an observation
Yes.
on our culture that we haven't evolved past. That someday
Yeah.
maybe we'll evolve past the need for, right?
We can
Um,
pray.
yeah. I don't know. Like one thing I think we can give credit for is the maybe not rewriting, but the redoing of a lot of the scenes in the first part of the
Yeah.
show that were rightfully so things that the show got criticized for. One of them being like Kirito when he is getting this happens in the first episode or second episode of of the original show, but when he's getting scolded and called a beater, right? Like he's getting like harassed in it, and you first get that whole it's him versus the world kind of perspective. It happens a little bit in the first movie again, but this is where the actual scene comes up. You know, when the guys are
Yeah.
walking past him and are like, "Was it Blackie
And
or something?"
throwing racial slurs at Kirito
This month
Yeah,
too? Come on, man.
um
yeah.
in February. It's crazy, but
Which they totally knew in,
Yeah.
October when they released this
yeah.
movie, but yeah, um, in Japan. But no, yeah, so, like, that scene was a vast improvement over what the original show had, I think, just because it came off so edgy in the original show. I didn't think it did, but to everyone else, apparently it did. It came off as super edgy in the original show. Versus in this one, I think it just came off as like something that naturally would happen, right? Like, oh, this guy really is just hoarding all the loot. He's being a fucking jerk. Who would ever want to like team with this guy anyways? Uh, racial slur. I guess they're playing in like Eastern Europe. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
The like playing on one of those servers. But yeah, so that was one of the scenes I think was improved. Were there any others that you guys caught?
I maybe not necessarily like a one-to-one scene, but I do think that uh the the evolution of like Diabo and the sort of direct consequences of SAO of the first floor of SAO being explored was done really well, where their main leader dies and now they have two factions who are like one of them is like let's just boost whoever's the best and let them carry us to the top, and then the other like now we all need to like go up together, um which to go back a little to was also like another place where like the design I thought was really good, because obviously the people that want to go up together are more uniform. They look like a more cohesive unit than the guys who are just feeding the top tiers. They looked more like we're just kind of banding together uh, while the top tiers carry and look cool and stuff. So I thought that Diabol was really good in this because in original SAO he just kind of is a jerk and that's it, and
Yeah,
he's a loser.
I do like the fact that like guild rivalry. I'm a big fan of that in like MMOs. I like it when you have the idea of like disbanding guilds and like people forming cliques, because that is a real thing in MMOs, especially with like the competitive guilds. So that's like a really fun game sense thing that they had going on in this, where I felt that was portrayed a little bit better.
yeah. I think too. It's cool to see the starting foundations for again in the original show, the Liberation Front or whoever that
Yeah,
army was that
Ironclad Liberation Army or Liberation
yeah
Front.
yeah. So they're in the original show, and they are the people that Kirito go and Asuna go like underground with or whatever to try and find this lady's husband or whoever. Maybe that's who those 2 characters were that we saw, you know? Like,
Yeah,
who knows? But, like, they're very clearly meant to be the building point, right? Of the like, that guild is probably going to become that down the line, or there's going to be that they're the foundation for it. So it's establishing the world. I think the world building in
yes,
this movie is mind-blowingly, like, incredible.
It's
Like,
night and day.
it's
it's not yeah, comparatively, it's night and
insane.
day, but even uncomparatively, I think it's one of the best I've ever seen in a, at least in an isekai setting,
For
you know,
sure.
it's so good, like, they show the menus, has I'm gonna steal your thunder on this one, but
Go ahead.
uh there's the menu when, Mito and Asuna go to duel, it shows translated the 3 menus. Oh, like, what kinda duel do you wanna do? A first hit kinda duel, or do you wanna do an all-out one, or do you wanna do the full to death duel? There were the 3 choices, so that'll help later on when we're looking at that silly arc when they're exploring what the murderer or who the murderer is or whatever. When that comes up, we'll have some context as to, oh wait, it is shocking that people are dying in non-player combat areas. Like we won't have to sit there and get exposed or exposited about it. We'll just know it from watching the movies, right? So I really like that. What are some other like good world building stuff that they did?
The
Yeah.
necklace.
Yes.
The
Oh,
necklace. So in the original SAO, there's a big part where sort of the climax, not necessarily the climax, but like one of the main things that bring Asuna and Kirito together is, Kirito goes through like to this training in this guild, the Knights of the Blood Oath, and he gets paralyzed. And now we have this item that essentially nullifies it, which is in Asuna's possession, to be fair, not Kirito's. But that now changes future things. There's all those like small details that, like, for example, as well, in the original series, Aegil is the shopkeeper, and we know that he's been shopkeeping from very early on in SAO's life because they mentioned that when Kirito goes to meet him, that Kirito knows about him hustling the lower level players and ripping them off for cheap quality stuff. In this one, though, Aegil is never put into that position. Instead, the new anime original character is, and that now frees up Aegil to be something else. We still haven't really seen Klein in this movie too, which is
yeah.
interesting because we know Klein is building his own guild, also off in the distance somewhere from the original series. There's just so many small things that, like, again, the translating, the dual stuff, the fact that, like, even in the first 15 minutes, they don't go through what happened in the first 5 floors all the way through, but you can see, like, in the gear, right, that Diabol's guild has, the ALS. Diabol himself has a sword that is an earlier design of the Elucidator that Kirito carries, which to me reads that not Climb, that Diabol got the last hit bonus on one of the earlier floor bosses, which
Yep.
explains why he's so adamant about getting it. And they never really explicitly say that, but he has a very unique sword that everyone else does not have, which implies that he got the last hit. And it's like those small details are so good at like filling you in on what's happening, even if you haven't seen it.
For sure. We've been nice, so I'm gonna get a little mean here. So I think SAO does two, in terms of world building, does things great and bad at the exact same time. So I think when they're outside of like dungeons, this is like geographical world building. I think it's fantastic. They show the landscapes, they show the cities, even like little notches, especially at the end where like where they bought fireworks. I thought that's like a little nod, like a real quick sentence to explain how this is happening. Love that. What I hated about the world building in SAO is the dungeons and the raids that they go into. When we have two examples of this in the movie. The first one is when they go treasure hunting, essentially. They enter like one room and they're already at the boss. There's like no exploration at all in this like labyrinth slash catacombs that they're going into. He even says like there's like there's like I'm gonna paraphrase it, but essentially like below our feet there's like a labyrinth of like mazes and stuff where people used to go treasure hunting back in the beta or something like that. And we get shown one room and then the cave essentially. And then the other one is in the final raid of the boss. They kill one mob before getting to the final boss. One golem. And they showcase this elaborate raid that they're about to enter. Like they're standing on top of this hillside. We have this sweet fortress that looks like it's straight out of Maze Runner. It's like, all right, cool. Let's go on a journey. Because they do that in the original SAO where like they're battling rooms and they're battling different things. And this is they fight one golem. I'm like, you're doing so well at exploring the world, except for the danger of the world, where I think that's more focused on the people than the monsters. But I feel like they really missed the mark on that because I feel like they could have set up that final boss. There's like no tension or anything going into it, which I feel like there should have been, because it's like what they're trying to accomplish is like a really big deal that is like going to stop two guilds from essentially going to war with each other, and it's just like silly and not what I wanted, I guess.
Yeah. No, I feel you on that. I was kind of sad that the shot of the labyrinth is super cool.
Yeah.
And they're all looking at it in like awe. Um, but you know, to the point of this being a rewrite, and obviously I still think that that is a fair criticism. There's a quote in this movie that, and I think I said this in our first review as well, that the original SAO is far less about VR and more about the people. I think there's a really good quote in this movie that really exemplifies it towards the end, where Mito talks about finding her own way of life and sort of that being the central message. But I do agree. I felt like the boss was just a game boss that they ran
Yeah.
into. You know what I mean?
Like, and
Instead
I
of a
get
life or
that.
death game boss.
When they're focused on the characters and the drama and, like, the things that are going on behind the
Yeah.
scenes and stuff with the characters, I think that they do a great job, but that's only one part of SAO. Like,
Yep.
a huge thing about SAO is completing the levels and advancing, and thank God they don't do it like they did in the show where it's like they're on level, like, I don't know, 9, and then the next episode they're on, like, 34. I do enjoy the
Yeah.
pacing way better at this, but I wish they showed me that progression instead of
Mhm.
just like, okay, we have to get from point A to point B, and there's steps along the way to get there. But in the movie, it's just they went from A to B, and I was just like, man, you missed
Yeah.
something.
Well, yeah. So I think, is that fair criticism? Yeah, but also
Yeah.
this is a movie, right? Like,
Well, you can do it in the
um,
movie.
I did tell Pat earlier too that I thought like a good 20 minutes maybe added on would do some good for this movie as well. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but there were definitely moments that could have been explored a little more. Um, like the labyrinth and um just some, you know, they like I think we said it earlier, if we haven't, it's a very heavy setup movie. It's very clearly
Yes.
setting up a lot of stuff, which is why the world building is so good. Uh, but there are scenes that may seem a little disjointed, and it feels like maybe you should have focused on what's happening
Hmm.
here. For example, like the bath fight scene is super cool. It develops Argo and the information broker stuff, but it's not really used in the movie at the moment, so it's it's used for one scene with Kirito finding um Mito, but then it's like we didn't really need that because in the end her information was wrong anyway, and
Yeah.
you could have spent some more time in the labyrinth.
And that fight was like longer than the fight of them fighting the one golem that they had. It's like I get it. I understand like why they did it, but I don't think it's like I don't think criticism of like it's a movie and they had to like cut stuff is like fair when I feel like they could have like we got the human interaction for 90% of the movie. I just
Yeah.
wish that they could have maybe cut some other stuff to show me this world that you're in. Like
Mhm.
that's all I wanted. I just wanted more, I guess, from that aspect of it.
No, I totally agree. I think there are definitely it it's hard too because it felt like there were moments where the game took priority. They made sure to a lot in this movie show like weapon stats, like what does this
Mhm.
do, etc., etc. Like even in the boss fight, you see Asuna like chess piece breaks, and in the background when they're rewriting, she like opens up the menu and re-equips it
Yes.
like a new chess piece. She has backup swords, and while that's all cool, and it feels almost sometimes like maybe a little insecure about itself in that there was a lot of criticism of the original SAO and not exploring its game mechanics and therefore like the vagueness of it making it seem like this is a really terrible game. And in this I don't think that's as much the case, but it loses the to me the main appeal of the world of SAO is the world, you know. I think like if you go back to the original, like the first like landscape where Kirito's running down the town of beginnings and like you see these weird hills and it's just like those are so cool and like you want to be an SAO, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like if an SAO games came out, like, we'd be in there, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Regardless of
Oh
the
yeah.
mechanics for me, I'd at least wanna walk around there, you know what I mean? Um, and as we see in the movie and in the show too, like, that's also what a lot of people do, so it's odd that as a viewer, right, this big of this is a world that people are living in and exploring, and it's inhabited, and in fact, it's becoming a more dominant thought that we could just live here, and it's hurting progress in the game that people don't want to fight, they just want to live here. It's like, well, why do they want to live here? I don't know because you haven't explored it with me that much.
Mhm.
All right, Pete. Come on, keep going. What else do you
Okay.
have? What else do you have to
My
say?
my biggest
What's
gripe.
gonna justify? What's gonna justify the 6 or 7 that you're about to
Okay,
give it?
my absolute biggest gripe with this movie. Okay, so it's broken up into two parts. So we have to get the context of the first part, and then we'll go into the context of the second part. So the first part of the movie, the two guilds are butting heads and possibly kind of betraying another one because of an item. So they want to get this staff or this flag that increases this raid buff. So it's presented to us that there's it drops once. You're not allowed to like change the guild name on it or whatever. You're not allowed to. There has all these like different, um, essentially like a security around it. Like only one guild is allowed to have this flag. So that's kind of like how I feel like it's set up,
Mhm.
and that's like the whole reason of this conflict. And that's why Kirito arranges this ragtag team of mercenaries to essentially go in there and get it before the either guild gets it to kind of like resolve the conflict himself. And then at the end of it, he explains during like his conditions that there's a chance that it will drop again, and if one of the guild already has it, they have to give it to the other one. And they never ever explained that at the beginning, which I think could have been resolving all of this conflict in general. And to me, that just like really killed like the whole premise of the conflict of the movie.
Pete, come on. You're an MMO player. You're
Yes,
telling me that if there was a limited resource that only is guaranteed to drop this one time, we don't know if it would drop again. You're telling me 2 guilds would not be practically killing each other to try and get the first dibs on it?
that
Like, I
is
think
not
that
my
that's a
issue with it. My
but,
issue with it is Kirito explaining to the fact afterwards that it could drop more than once, where he already knew that and he never explained it to either guild.
I think so the way I interpreted that final scene was that Kirito said, "All right, I have 2 conditions here. The
Yes.
first condition is if I do give this to one of the other guilds, then the other one, if another one does drop, has to be given to the other one."
Yes.
His second condition covers that though, doesn't it? Where like where he's like, you have to, if you guys what was it? If you guys rejoin
Merge.
together, merge, it will go to you automatically.
Yes.
I think like that was his attempt to enable a merger, in my opinion, more so than him actually knowing that it might drop again. I don't think he knows if it would ever drop again. I don't think that that's like the way that that is meant to be interpreted.
See,
And
I even if that is the case, I feel like it should have been mentioned in the first part that there is a possibility that this drops again. Kirito is like this beta tester, you know, and he has more information than other people. So him, I don't know if it's just like a bold-faced lie that it will never drop again, but it seems like to me that Kirito knows that there is a chance that this item drops again, and also from like an MMO perspective, the the reasoning that this once in a lifetime item drops on level 5 is just absolutely silly. Like normally this would be like end game, like top of the tier stuff, where if it's that limited, not like the something that 9 people can do essentially.
right,
Well,
right, but
to be
okay.
fair, to that point at least, it every floor of SAO is like that,
No, for
presumably.
sure. But
You know
like
what I mean?
you don't see guilds like going to war with each other
Yeah.
every level for the final drop or whatever. But for some
Yeah.
reason this one is.
Well, it's so,
Yeah,
and
because
the
it's
other
thick
thing,
though, buff.
But like,
But
yeah,
oh, can I say something prior? But like,
yeah,
so there is like this limited resources, like items in the game, but
yeah,
there are also resources that you can like essentially farm, right?
yeah.
Like any other MMO. So
Hmm.
how do we know that this is like a once in a lifetime thing or something that can be farmed? I guess it's like
And
maybe this isn't like maybe this is like a fault of the story not explaining like their loot system to me. Where like if someone who hasn't played MMOs probably doesn't give a shit, but for someone like me who has played like 20 years of WoW, like I need to know this answer. Like,
y-
I feel you. I think to also your point and to the story, and this is just I think something that the story does a lot too,
mhm.
uh, and kind of sets up for that. And people are gonna either like it or not like it. Information just isn't right in the show sometimes. Like Argo, the best information broker that we know, gets the last boss wrong, prior to them walking in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
because it's changed from the
so
beta.
yeah,
Yep.
so to Kirito saying that, also he did learn it. He did learn. He didn't even really remember the item until the conversation.
Let me ask you
So
this question then. It's more along the lines
yeah,
of how does he know that it's a once like a one only drop compared to not knowing if you could like farm the item? I guess that's kind of like my idea
yeah,
because like if he knew it was a once in a lifetime item drop, he would never gave that condition in the
yeah.
second half.
well, that's a bluff. Again, it's part of
It
his
could be. It
bluff, in
absolutely
my
could be.
opinion. That's the way I
Yeah,
interpret it. It's his bluff, and the other thing too, that I think might help our case too has here is that I think the information as well that this buff was even dropping was very clearly orchestrated by the Laughing Coffin
yeah,
people, the members, right? Which is also another thing that they do a really good job of world building, establishing that there's, right at the beginning, the two guys, they do like an LC sort of
Yeah,
of
signal.
neighborhood
they
script.
threw up their
Yeah.
gang signs when they saw each
Yeah, well,
other.
that's LC.
Yeah.
That's Laughing Coffin, right? So that's they're clearly not established yet. People don't know about them yet
Mhm.
in the world, but because they're like PKers. Who are PKers? Like, there's no way. But no, they are. They're slowly
That's a
becoming
good
a thing,
point.
right? So I think the way I interpreted, or I was hoping that would go, I guess, because I was like, oh, this would be really clever if they did, was that the information that the two guilds had to increase the tension was that it was a limited
Okay.
one-time drop, whatever. Like, that's the way I interpreted that, because it was like, oh, so is this, oh, they, because he says, oh, I got this information from someone. Like, I
Y
trust a person in my guild or something, or from some beta tester, and they prove that the two Laughing Coffin guys are beta
Okay.
testers too,
yeah,
right, in their conversation. So
and
so that's where I was
You
like,
know what, Pat? I agree. I'm going to raise my score up a point because of that.
yeah, I
you
did
got it
it.
to the 7.
We got it
Okay,
to an 8.
I do think that what you were saying is very plausible and I agree with you. I just wish it was like explained a little bit more. But
For sure.
you know what? Save that for another day. It's not as bad as I
And
thought it was.
We
and
can't be all as bright and talented and smart as me. It's okay.
That's true.
all right.
I'm
Base
kidding.
But
Pat.
and but to this conversation as well, and like what I was saying earlier, like it is hard in those scenes too because again, what is a bluff, what isn't? There's a lot of moving parts here that are again in the background. It's like even if Kirito didn't know, he still might have said it because when Kaiba walks when Diabo walks by him, he like in front of his guild, he's very like fuck the other side. But when
Yeah.
he walks past him, he's like, thanks. And it's like, clearly they both knew that there was some major tension and they were trying to like play it as safe as possible. So, like, a good scene to lie in, you know what I mean? But again, we don't know. And it's tough when you don't know and there's no explicit stating. We might get that in the future, we may
Yeah.
never. But uh, one thing this movie definitely has established is that with the introduction of Argo as just as a character is how important information is going to be and who knows what and whether it's real or not and what's true and what's changed because in the beginning of SAO it's sort of just used as a way to make Kirito like the bad guy in everyone's eyes. He's like, "Oh, he's a beta tester. He knows more and he's infallible." Um Whereas in this one, it's like even Argo, who is the beta tester, along with Kirito and her scouting, which is seemingly good because she just found Mito in the middle of nowhere one
Yeah,
day
right.
and just sold that. Like, she's different with the information gathering. So if even she can be wrong, it's like, well, what's true? And obviously it happened in that one scene. I do hope that it is a little more clear in the future. Like, they don't lead into it too much. I see it being like a center of like maybe the next movie with Laughing Coffin and like so is more mystery. Um, but that being like the one example, it definitely like could be interpreted to like
Mhm.
what is going on. Like,
Oh
so
my god, Mito's weapon. Sorry, we
So
just keep brought
cool.
her up.
So
Oh,
cool.
it's like Crescent Rose vibes from
Oh
Ruby.
my god,
oh
that's
my
so
god.
Ruby's scythe. Oh my god, I was
Okay,
like sitting there like, what's going on? Look at how sick this is.
can I just real quick just one more praise, real good
go
praise
for it.
of this show.
I actually have a praise after you.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
The
I actually have a high praise for something.
the dialogue, I love that. In I had a very moment, like a moment where I was super scared because if you don't know, Mito is the anime original character, which means that the person who's making this movie is writing her, and it's being written into the story. And if you watch the original SAO, there are some moments where obviously they're high schoolers, but it's a little corny and edgy at times, right? Like the original, like Kirito's a beater scene, like. So when I saw Mito again and how they brought her back as like this very dark, like sort of reclused person I was very scared that she was gonna be like turned into this very corny, like SAO one edgy Kirito version of herself. But like the interaction she had with Asuna and then Kirito after was like very level headed and like it all made sense. And I, I truly cannot praise the dialogue interactions enough, especially with Mito. Like, I feel like Mito was super super cool. And they handled her so well. They handled the darker parts of SAO way better now than they did in the original.
Right on. Okay, so my super high praise, I was actually going to start docking it until I realized what was going on with it, was the boss mechanics. So,
Oh yeah.
so we've seen it before that it's essentially two guilds fighting like a monster and there's like 40 people in it. And now it's like a group of 9 people going in to fight this boss. I'm like, this doesn't make any logical sense. Like, what do you mean? Now they go from 40 to 9, I'm just expecting them to beat it. And then they show the mechanics and the boss is more of like a puzzle than like a final boss. And I was like, this makes way more sense to defeat the boss with 9 people compared to 40, because more likely, if you ever rated in WoW, you have 12 idiots messing up all the mechanics and killing everybody. But if you had 9 people, it's much easier to do the mechanics. And literally killing the boss was just like sharpshooting the thing, where it's like,
Mm.
okay, this is a level 5 boss. It's not supposed to be the most difficult thing in the world. It's just like, can you do the basics? And I thought they executed that so well. It's like, this is like one of those like little nerd things. I was like, this guy, for as much as I don't think he understands MMOs, he definitely understands the boss, because I loved it. I love this boss fight. Minus, I wish it had more Sakuga moments. I feel like they missed out in like really portraying a really cool boss fight. I thought it was just okay.
Yeah.
But the
I wa-
game
I was
mechanics were
I was
fucking sweet. I loved it. 10 out of 10.
I was slightly disappointed with when it was revealed. Like, I did like that the golem eventually did come down. The arms were really cool, like the way they activated it to like,
Yeah.
and then rolled out the way. It was super cool, especially because I'm not a MMO person like Pete, but I do enjoy like the more like Fantasy Star, like Black Desert combat of MMOs, where it's like super like fast paced and action or combat oriented ARPG stuff. Um, so that was super cool to see, and I also like that again, just more world building parts in the the boss fight. There's a difference between boss fights now than there was in the original SAO, which is you can leave. And we see that they open the door to
Oh,
like
sick.
Argo in the beginning opens the door to unflood the room so that they could like fight again, and the staircase is completely open, which allows Mito to just walk in later instead of it being like a closed off thing that once you're in, you're in. And obvi- obviously, there are bosses that can trap people in rooms because, as we saw, the boss tried to trap everyone in that room, but Asuna got caught in its like mouth, and it allowed Bito to get in. But stuff like that was like the boss fight was super fun to watch. Like watching them like step on the line, activate the, and then just roll out.
Mm.
It was super cool.
Yeah, I mean they kind of established that they can leave in the original show as well because they mentioned that, like they have scout parties that go in, test out the boss patterns before using like teleportation crystals to get away.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
pretty
that is
sure,
true.
and
That
then
is true.
because then like the big climax is, hey, our scout team of 20 people never came back. They're dead. So we can like when the boss door opened again, they were dead or gone. So we can only assume that you can't leave once you go in. Like that was the big climactic boss, right? So I assume we'll get to that point when they, like when the bigger guilds come in and establish themselves as powerhouses in the front lines, the assault team or whatever they call themselves. That'll come up. But yeah, again, like you guys are saying, it's an early level boss. It's not meant to be unbeatable, but they do also start to build that. Oh yeah, some bosses might try to trap you, or they might not be. They might be more puzzle like. Just one more world building thing because I know we're talking a lot about it, but it's so good. Again, this is just a nod to the future. The first boss that we see, I think, I guess technically the fourth floor, Asuna and Kirito go to kill it together. Asuna is like, "What the fuck? Why did you get the bonus? We attacked at the same time."
And
Kirito's
it
like, "I was a little faster, probably," and
Little
she's like,
small.
"A little bit, just a slightly faster," and she's like, "No, you weren't. There's no way," and he's like, "I'm pretty sure I was." The lore
small stuff.
behind that is that he is the fastest person in the game. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why he gets the dual wield sword ability. 4 movies from now, when we're all 35 and have kids and stuff, we're gonna be sitting there going, "Remember in the second movie when they brought that up? It's gonna be better," like it's gonna come up again. It will come up again, and now it's established rather than just basically. Which I didn't think it was that bad in the original show personally, because it's just like, all right, cool. The main character is the fastest. That's
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like, but like that was a big complaint for people, right? That oh, why is he the fastest? Is he really like what's the point? Why do they just shoehorn that in for why he has two swords, So or that dual wield ability, whatever you want to call it. So like those little moments, there were so many of those little moments throughout that were just like I was just sitting there as a big fan. I was just like, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me more.
That was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
hmm but yeah, all right. I guess I don't know. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that we haven't specifically touched on, other than stuff that we could talk about in closing thoughts?
I know we talked about obviously that the mechanics of the boss were cool. And we briefly mentioned the Mito versus Asuna stuff, but like the choreography was also very good. Like in general, they used the space to its fullest. Like even in the boss fight, like the walls start sort of like moving in and out, and then in the background you see like Kirito and Argo running along them to get like a higher advantage. And I thought choreography was also very top notch because in SAO Progressive 1, we didn't get super big choreographic moments. Like the big moment that I remember from SAO 1 was when Kirito did saved Asuna and did like the super like spin like 720 slice. And it was
Yeah.
like that was a cool moment. But in terms of like fight choreography, this definitely amps it up from the first movie. Um and yeah, that was probably the only thing I could think of right now.
Yep. I got nothing else. I can save everything for like final thoughts and ratings, stuff like that.
Sweet. All right. Yeah. Well, why don't we get into it? I guess I'll go first. I don't really have anything else to add other than I can't stop recommending this enough to people. Like, if you were turned off by the original SAO, I think this is to me. I cannot fathom if you go into this like objectively looking at it, these 2 movies, how you can give either of them, but especially this one, anything lower than like a 7 for a score, as in like it is good. I think like production wise, it's real. I think it's really good. I can see an argument for why it's just good, but the plot, the world building, there's so many different things that happen in this that are so high quality that I can't imagine giving it lower than a 7 from anybody that at least that I would take seriously. Because and you can not like it, but like from a technical standpoint, to me this screams that it's good, and I can't wait for more. This is clearly setting up for more movies that I'm surprised we haven't heard that the third movie's coming yet, because the last time this happened, it was announced like pretty much right after. So um I don't know. I can't wait for the third movie to come. I Before I talked about it with you guys too, I was like, originally when I finished watching, I was like somewhere between a 7 and an 8, I think. And then I thought about it more, and I was like, wow, look at this was really good. The world building was incredible. Like, and I talked myself up to like an 8 or a 9. I think I'm gonna just say fuck it and stick with my 9 now, because like I feel very confident. Like this movie was everything I could have wanted from it. Again, the only things that are really knocking it down are those random fan service shots, which are so minor and probably not noticeable for most people that don't like watch anime as much as we do too. Like if you showed this to a normal person, they wouldn't even think about it. And I guess again, the it didn't look the best at the beginning. The first half of the movie, it was again, it wasn't bad. It was just fine. It was good. So yeah, I think 9 out of 10 is where I'm gonna end. Uh, Probably do an 8.5 if I could, but I can't because we set that arbitrary rule for ourselves. So
Damn right.
damn right, yeah. So Pete, what about you?
Oh, you are. Oh, yeah,
Let's
yeah. Let's
hear.
let it on a high note. Good call. Um,
I'm excited.
my issues with, like, for the most part, I thought this was a very solid movie. My complaints with the first movie was it felt like a really long episode and it didn't feel like a movie. And I think they did a little bit better job at this, but I still felt like it was, for the most part, a really long episode. And I wish that we got like a big Sakuga moment in like the boss battle, something along those lines, to really make it stand out from it being a movie compared to its TV show. And I think that's where they missed a little bit of the mark. I gave my thoughts on the world building. Some of the stuff that I wish was explained a little bit more. I thought that they could have done that, especially in a dialogue heavy show like this, and just could have explained like the biggest conflict in the show. I feel like it could have just been explained a little bit better. Love the addition of Argo as essentially like a main character in this movie. She was great. I like how she bounces off sort of Kirito and Asuna. They're more calm and stoic, and Argo is a little bit sporadic at times and a little bit more extroverted, I'll say that way. So I really liked her addition. To me, just a good movie compared to like the other movies I saw like last year that like really stood out to me in terms of like every presentation thing available. Like Inuo, the Science Star movie, I thought like really expanded on that. And with A1 at the helm, I expect a little bit more. But as like a structured movie, I thought it was good. I'm gonna give this a 7.
Okay,
We got
we did
there.
it. We did
We
it.
got there.
Has you and I
I
are in
originally
this.
had
We
it
got,
as 6, but
I
we
you
can't
talked me
know.
believe
up to a
that.
That
Like
7.
was
I
that
cannot
was the
believe
score
that.
we expected. Or at least I
I gave the
expected.
first movie a 7. I thought this was like Pat said, if I could this is like a 7.5, I would, but I don't think it's good enough for an 8, but I did like it better than the first movie.
Yeah, so you know, before I give my score, I want to preface some things too that I think are important. One, I have watched all of SAO, which I think is very key to world building in this.
Mm.
Um, Knowing, because when you all these things in a vacuum may seem like one-off lines, um, but when you know who Kirito becomes, who Asuna become, the future, you really see the the little puzzle pieces they put around everywhere. But obviously, to someone who hasn't watched SAO, it would seem just like your average movie. And I think you know the again, we're still, to Pete's point about the episode stuff. We're still very early in this new story's telling. We're still very low level floors. Stakes are not nearly as high as they are towards the latter half of SAO, or even towards the beginning because of all the time skips. So if you're expecting, there's a lot of good drama here regarding people. In terms of maybe the MMO itself being a threat, it hasn't super been explored yet. Um, Even in the boss fight, when people get grabbed, they don't seem necessarily frightened for their life. So if you're looking for that, we're not there yet. I'll say hold off because this isn't a bad movie. This is a great movie, knowing that there are more movies coming. Um, but man, even with that, the dialogue, the puzzle pieces, the way it's all handled, sound design, the second halves and the music, it's so good. I have to give it a 9. Like
Oh,
I
I
was I
think
was
I'll give it a
teetering
10
on
for a second.
no, no, no. I was teetering on 8 or 9, and I can't see it being lower than a 9 for me. However, and I'm gonna just final thought, if you haven't watched SAO and this is gonna be your introduction, wait one more movie. Wait one more movie because the next movie is when it's gonna get from the setup of the ending. The next movie is when we're really gonna get to that more high stakes stuff, the super high stakes stuff where lives are on the line.
Do you guys remember what you gave the first movie?
I believe I gave it an 8.
Let me click just to look, but I'm pretty sure I gave it either an 8 or a 7 as well.
Okay, so we're all in
No, I gave
consensus.
it a 9. I
Okay,
gave it a yeah, yeah. I
I'll
guess I
say,
said.
did you like this better than the first movie?
100%.
I liked this as a continuation. I think that the two movies kind of blend together really well too. And I think like your point about how it felt like just a longer episode, I should have mentioned that as well. Like I like this movie felt like it could have been 20 minutes shorter or 20 minutes longer,
Yes.
and it would have been fine, right? Like if they just cut off right after the boss, I forget, was it right after the boss or something else? Like the one scene after the boss, it could have been fine, but they kept going, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of surprised, but okay, I'm in for this. And then it felt like it could have been longer too. So so I don't know. I think I made that joke earlier too, though. But like, it's gonna suck having to wait for all of these movies to come out. Like, I want to see it now. I want to see all the rewrites now. Like, I want to know like. Show me like Klein already. Damn it, like give me these movies faster than one per year for the next I don't know 10 years of my life. Like so I definitely agree with that. Where it's definitely too much or too spaced out. So I agree with like Has saying like I don't know. I would go watch it because I'm a big SAO fan, but this would be even better in a binge or in like a couple movies a night kind of setup.
Felt that. Okay, so a 7 from me, 2 9, so it's pretty much a recommendation from all three of us. Um, I guess let us know your thoughts as well. I'd like to see this right now on Mallet has a lower score than the first movie, but I'm assuming most people will be seeing it like today or tomorrow. So we'll see how those numbers roll in and how it compares. It's like barely below. It's like whatever, but yeah. Let us know whether it's like in YouTube comments or Twitter or Discord. Let us know. But that concludes our SAO episode. Hopefully we can do this again next year. It seems to be like a 12 to 13 month gap in between movies, so maybe another freezing February night we can talk some SAO. But we want to say thank you if you've made it this far. If you want to support us, the best way to do so is like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, whatever platform you are watching or listening to us on. Next week we will be doing Watch Club. That's Liz and the Bluebird. And then following that is my favorite episode of the entire year, Anime of the Year. Check that out in the coming week. So on behalf of Pat and Has, I want to say thank you, and we will see you next time.